thank you for those who came out in person on this really first storm of the season for Crestone. Very tempting just to stay in bed and keep reading, but here we are. So thank you. And those online who I sense are dedicated followers to the Ghatika monthlies. Thank you for showing up. So let's start with paying homage to our teachers, because, you know, I wouldn't be here teaching this little bit of Dharma if it weren't for their compassion, and particularly I give great gratitude to Dr. Alan Wallace, who hooked me with the strength of his bodhicitta when I was 28 years old and set me on the path of Buddhism, and enabled me to meet many, many other great teachers before they died. And they are dying. Many of them have passed. Lama Alan and I, 40 years later, will be passing soon too. And so let's just pay homage to all of our teachers whom we stand on the back of as we grow in wisdom. And then let's set our aspiration for our time together. Aspiration is very important to bodhicitta as well. It is the aspiration that stimulates the heart of bodhicitta. It stimulates compassion, and that compassion issues forth from the heart. So it's a quick and easy way to get going. If you're interested in Buddhist mudras, the bodhicitta mudra is, and the aspiration mudra is like this. It's sending out into the world this aspiration. And so let's imbue our motivation with this aspiration that our time together be of greatest benefit to ourselves and others. And let's begin to become familiar with the bodhisattva aspiration. Shantideva says it best, for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, so long may I remain for the alleviation of the suffering of the world. It's in the Bodhicharya Vitara, or Bodhisattva Way of Life, basic standard text for bodhicitta. But in brief, it is to strive to bring a complete end to all the sufferings of others. All right, I think that's our greatest and highest aspiration, and we'll do what we can today. And how do we bring forth this aspiration effectively and not just be out there thrashing about? It's through a balanced mind, obviously. It takes a steady and balanced mind to do the investigative inquiry into bodhicitta and to apply bodhicitta. If your mind isn't balanced and grounded, then what are you bringing to others? You know, are you just fulfilling a bodhisattva vow or a nundro commitment, you know, clicking off your mala beads, sort of a have to instead of a want to? You'll burn out really quickly that way. Not a bad practice, but it won't sustain you. Well, it might. I don't want to get into that. Or aspiration could be filtered through the veil of grasping. And in this case, it would be like grasping at me and mine, like I want my family to be well, my children, my community, and good luck with yours. Some people have just enough bodhicitta for their own. So I have to kind of watch that grasping. It's kind of known as the near enemy of compassion. And then we also have to watch for the far enemy of compassion, which is that our compassion, real and genuine compassion, can be filtered through hostility. And I know nobody here is cultivating hostility, or you wouldn't be at a talk like this unless you're just trying to get the upper hand on compassion, you know. I don't think that's true. But as our compassion arises for difficult situations, particularly, let's just take the example of war. Let's take the example of war crimes. You know, our compassion wells up for people who are suffering to such extent. And it's very easy to want to just get out of that pain and create, a good and a bad. We want to make somebody wrong. One side's wrong. This person's wrong. That side deserves retribution even. We have this, I mean, even as far as like, I despise those people, we get into the subject object. And it's not because we're actively cultivating hostility, but it's that there's a lot of pain. Empathy sometimes equates to pain. You're sharing the pain, and we want to get out of the pain. And it's said that if for many people, if they were to release their hostility, they would have to come into contact with the full magnitude of their pain. And so that's tricky business. So, so that, that's the veil of hostility. So it's the far enemy of compassion. But genuine compassion comes from, a balanced, a joyous, an impartial, or even eudaimonic, as Lama Allen and Eve Ekman would say, eudaimonic mind, flourishing from within, a sharing from within. And so let's just start by grounding and stabilizing our mind through shamatha practice. It is the king of all practices for stabilizing the mind. It's a moment we get to sort of rest and reflect and rebalance. I have a feeling most of us are pretty well informed about shamatha, but just a couple of introductory remarks, and I don't know who's online and what your practice is here, but the only requisite for shamatha, really, if you want to make it simple, is that you don't want to go too far into agitation or too far into dullness. You want to stay in the middle. And so that's one thing you're monitoring for. Are thoughts going to arise? Yes, thoughts are going to arise. Thoughts don't ever cease, ever. So I always like to clear up that misconception that somehow shamatha is about stopping the thoughts. You're going to get probably physically ill if you try to do that. It could be about finding space in between the thoughts, or it could be about finding the observer of the thoughts. There's many things to discover in the shamatha practice, those being just a couple of delicious tidbits. But at root, shamatha meditation, it should be nurturing and not necessarily a discipline, although it is sometimes taught as a discipline, even here at Myo Samten Ling. And my 40 years with Lama Allen, I've gotten a great education on the discipline of shamatha. It can be taught as a concentration practice, and it has that side to it. You can find the whole tiered 9-step process of achieving shamatha with very exact ways to do it. And you could actually experience the 4 results of shamatha: single-pointed mindfulness, manifest mindfulness, absence of mindfulness, naturally luminous mindfulness, and then stage 10, shamatha. And from there, you can actually cross over into liberation. It's a very worthwhile path. And many people here are traversing that path. I've known many people. Lama Allen has written many books and articles about it. And I've definitely benefited from this type of disciplined shamatha. However, it's kind of a long path, right? It's a lot of sitting, a lot of diligence, a lot of discipline. And so that's often known as the developmental path. And, Buddhism always has both. There's also a release path, a release method to shamatha, releasing more and more and more. And that's really pretty much all you do. It's sometimes this releasing method is equated to calm abiding. And I don't want to get into the nuances of that, but I'm going to use that term, calm abiding, because the emphasis here is on abiding. And I think that kind of helps with that. Well, release to what? Well, you're releasing and abiding. What are you abiding with? Well, first of all, you're calm. You're abiding with your calm. But then most typically you're abiding with the breath. Uh, and so why the breath? You know, in shamatha practice, there's all sorts of things that you can abide with. You can abide with a candle flame, you can a thangka, a statue, um, sky, clouds. You can abide with awareness. You can abide with anything. It's all fine, and they all have their qualities. But why not the breath? You know, it's considered the royal point of contact because it's always with you. You can find it everywhere, the grocery line, the stoplight, and you can rest your attention on the breath at any time and really feel that in and out, unencumbered breath and release all the things you're carrying to the breath. And, you know, if that weren't enough, let's go somatic. You know, the breath can be like an internal massage as your clothes move against your skin and your skin against your muscles and your muscles against your bones and your bones against your organs and your organs against each other. It's like a free massage. So I'm a big advocate for abiding with the breath. Um, and so we'll do that, but then we'll also integrate a little bit of concentration practice. Um, and We'll focus on the breath and then the appearances to the mind, and then right in on awareness itself. This is the tripod that Lama Allen really feels is a sturdy place, a sturdy type of shamatha combination for both beginners and also for advanced students. It really holds you up. So of all I think I taught a shamatha retreat. I think I came up with 30 different shamatha meditations, very different, with objects, without objects, relative, ultimate. But, you know, I trust my teacher, and he says these three will hold you on a regular basis. Um, so let's just start out with that. I'll guide you through it. All shamatha practices and most meditations in general start with the what we call the 7-point posture of Buddha Vairoshana. And I'll just I do it at the beginning of all my meditations, so I'll just help you get into it. It's a process of aligning your body so your energies can flow and you're not impeding your insight and awareness by, you know, knots of fixation, either physically, emotionally, or mentally. So top down starts with the top. Eyes should be relaxed. 180, kind of a 180 gaze, very relaxed. If I put my hands out like this, I can kind of see everything between my hands. And they can be lowered just a little bit. Sometimes it's said just down the tip of your nose. It's relaxing. This relaxing of the eyes is a meditation in and of itself, because in daily life, we're always fixating on something, right? This and that and this. And so this releasing and letting go and creating the equanimity of the entire 180 range is really refreshing. And then coming down, I go top bottom. So coming down to the mouth is slightly open, the jaw is relaxed. And the tongue is just kind of on the tip of your top palate. And that, again, just sort of closes a channel and kind of creates some stability. If you want to breathe through your mouth, that sometimes is seen as great preparation for further advanced practices. Sometimes that's just uncomfortable, and breathing through your nose is just fine. And coming down, we have the neck, and they say, I guess Vairoshana said, that the neck is like the crook of a shepherd's staff. And so it kind of comes up the back of your neck and goes down right about where your nose is. And you want to feel that opening in the back of your neck. So you can kind of, to find that, you can kind of move your head forward and then you can kind of move it back a little bit, and you can kind of find that opening. And then very important is the straightness of your spine. And you don't want to be slumping or clutching. And the image is of like a stack of gold coins. It's a nice image. Your spine is a stack of gold coins. And coming down to the legs, and of course, the royal posture for meditation is the Vajra posture, also known as the full lotus. And I don't know about you, but my 68-year-old legs don't want to do that anymore. I don't know if they ever did. So it really just matters that your legs are in some position that supports the straightness of your spine and the other parts of the posture. So they can be on the ground, they can be in half lotus, you can be reclining. You can be reclining in one of those zero gravity chairs. I think that's a great way to do shamatha. And so that's the legs. And then finally, I think I left out the shoulders. How could I do that? I love the shoulders. Shoulders are back and down like vulture wings, tucked in a little bit. If you've ever done Tai Chi, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it opens the chest and opens the airways. And now finally, the hands. And for today, I'm going to recommend that they're, right hand on top of left with thumbs attached, 4 fingers below your navel. It's just one way the hands can be, but this is the bodhisattva posture, and it's method and wisdom combined. And that's what we'll be talking about today, so why not? But if that doesn't feel comfortable, and I know when I had a rotator cuff injury, that was not comfortable, then just the good old Dzogchen, flop into your lap. Just be relaxed. Okay, and so now you have a posture that supports the breath, so you might have a chance of beginning at the most coarse level to feel that internal massage I was talking about with the rise and the fall of the breath. And to the best of your ability, let your awareness, your focus, abide with the breath, whatever that means to you. Abide with the breath. The main thing is you're not doing anything with it. There's no counting, no, this breath is long, this one is short. Here's my pause, there's my gap. None of that. That's too much concentrating. So just abide and relax and feel. And then you might just turn your attention towards thoughts. Thoughts never end. Don't try to repress them. Don't do anything with them. My favorite image is of a pony carousel going around and around. Maybe one of those ponies stand out. You want to like really examine it, but just let it go. Maybe one of those ponies jumps the carousel and gallops away with your attention. Maybe even for 2 or 3 minutes. Happens more than you think. That's all right. Just gently bring your attention back to the breath and just observe the thoughts. Again, maybe peripherally guarding for agitation versus dullness. Try to stay in the middle. Curious, but not perseverative is the word we use in psychology. Arising and letting go. Don't elaborate. Don't create a narrative. For heaven's sakes, don't create a strategy for the narrative. I've spent entire retreats doing that. What a waste of time. Just let your thoughts go. If they're so important, you can pick them up later. They'll be there. I guarantee. Just rest. Perhaps you can notice the space in between the thoughts. Focus your resting right there. There is that space between when one thought ends and the other one begins. Do we ever know where it goes? Do we ever know where the next one comes from? This little bit of gentle vipassana inquiry is perfectly okay as you watch these thoughts arise and dwell and go. From where? How do they stay? Where do they go? And then if it feels right, you could begin to be curious about who is observing all of this, whether it's the breath or the thought or the space. Who's looking at all that? Who is the one awareing it all? You can become aware of awareness, abide with awareness, rest in awareness. And this is the sweet spot of shamatha, where the cares of the world subside and we are firmly at home in our awareness. Let's dwell here a moment and not rush. And when you're ready, gently begin to bring yourself back. Kind of just feel your gravity on the surface you're sitting on and the temperature in the room and the presence of other people, the light through your eyes. Try to come on back without breaking awareness. Because today is a day to understand, put these two together, understand and experience bodhicitta, the heart of awakening. Awakening to what? Compassion for all human beings, which includes oneself, sometimes the hardest of all. Psychologist here. Notice that awakening, this heart of awakening or awaken, it can be an adjective or a verb, right? It's both something to be experienced and something that's active at the same time. And as we discuss bodhicitta today, I don't want to lose either side of that. Either side, the verb or the adjectives. And now there's many schools of Buddhism that describe this topic in many ways across all of the yanas, Sutrayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Dzogchen. And I'm not going to describe all of the different ways because I want to focus on the dynamics of cultivating and experiencing and expressing bodhicitta, the dynamism the nature of the energy, the energy of it. And just last week, I saw Lama Tsultrim Allione posted on her social media this, just a quick clip of this rose opening, like this. And the only thing she said in the caption is, "This is bodhicitta." And I was like, what? Yeah, bodhicitta is so much more than that. What are you talking about? But I meditated on it. And I thought, she's right. That is bodhicitta. That's the natural effulgence of bodhicitta. And it's the effulgence that allows us to give loving kindness and take on the suffering of others without burning ourselves out. We've got to feel that expression, that effulgence. If you're coming from any other place, you're a good person, a nice person, probably doing a great deal of good, but that's not true bodhicitta. And so there are a lot of concepts and stages and sports and techniques involved in understanding bodhicitta. And for the scholars in the crowd, and I can see quite a few in this room, I just want to get this out of the way so it doesn't become an obstacle, as Sokni says. I'm not without awareness of all the different components, the relative and ultimate aspects of bodhicitta, the aspiration and the action aspects of bodhicitta, the four wheels, the 7-point causal sequence, Tonglen, white and dark factors, the 6 paramitas, the 4 immeasurables, the actionable bodhicitta. Of basic scaffolding, very important. It enhances our understanding of bodhicitta, but that's not exactly what I'm going to talk about, although I will unlayer a couple of those things. I listened to a talk that I gave when I was beginning to be a Buddhist teacher. Of course, I've been an academic teacher for 35 years, but that's different. But this is like around 2015, and I gave a talk on bodhicitta. It was for Lama Live. It was one of my first. I was really very wanted to do it just right for the teachers that I'd been studying with. And I was listening to my multitude of conceptual designations, which is what new teachers do. We want to look brilliant. And honestly, it felt to me like it strangled the energy out of this beautiful experience of bodhicitta. And I became bored with my own talk. Just the other day, I was listening to it, and I'm like, oh man, I can hardly even listen to this. And I just vowed I'd never do that to another audience or to myself. It's part of my transition out of academia. So I'll give you a few definitions. It's important, and we'll talk about a few concepts, but my goal is to stay right with the nature and the energy of the thing. So let's get started. Definitions. So bodhicitta, it's the power and energy, it's that rose, that fuels the bodhisattva aspiration or vow. I'll say it again. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, so long may I remain for the alleviation of the suffering of the world. Basically, may I strive to bring a complete end to all the sufferings of others. So citta, bodhicitta, citta is mind, and it's the mind that's aimed at awakening. Bodhi is awakening. And the awakening with wisdom and compassion for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that's why it's translated awakening mind. And it combines those two aspects, the wisdom of emptiness and compassion, and it combines them in different ways to achieve what we call relative and absolute bodhicitta. Ken MacLeod gives his best description of this blending of compassion with the wisdom of emptiness. He says, compassion is used to transform emotional reactivity into attention. Transform emotional reactivity, which we've all got, into attention. And don't forget the importance of shamatha for that intention, development of attention. One more, Ken. And he says, and that attention then in turn is used to awaken the nature of of what he calls mind emptiness, which is basically the mind that's empty of any real and actual substance. Basically, our minds are projections and delusions. We'll break that out in a little bit. And then he goes on, he says, but then that same emptiness becomes the basis for a different kind of compassion. So you see the circle there. It's compassion and emptiness feeding and fueling each other in a dynamic way that brings genuine bodhicitta. And that's what I hope to convey the most today, is that great blending and the power and energy of that. So hopefully one more definition, bodhicitta is the mind that is aimed at awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings, awakening mind. Awakening mind. So now we have to be clear at the outset that we are not talking about the ordinary mind. I'm pretty sure you may have a hint of that. It's not the ordinary mind. We're not striving to have a better ordinary mind, or as Lama Allen likes to say, better existence in samsara. We're not striving to have this better ordinary mind, because what's the ordinary mind made up of? It's made up of coarse and subtle mental factors. We know the coarse ones, they come barreling out of us. And they're not just mental, like opinions and judgments and assessments, and they're also emotional. In Buddhism, mental and emotional is always together. I'm not even sure they separate the two. They have different words for it. I was just recently talking to Baxter, who reminded me that in some schools, especially the Gelugpa, mental and emotional factors are just grouped as afflictive patterns or kleshas. And so you might have heard that too. And that's fine. All of this is the same course mind. I like to break it out in the way Jigme Lingpa does in the Treasury of Precious Qualities as mental and emotional, because I don't like to leave anything out. In any case, there's 51 of them, in case you're interested. 51 mental factors. And broadly speaking, zoom out, there's 84,000 ways that our minds can be afflicted. And you don't have to blame yourself. We come into the world with the karmic seeds for these 3 poisons, attachment, craving, attachment, ignorance, delusion, hatred, hostility, and anger. You can just watch a baby. No one taught that baby how to be angry when it's hungry, or how to crave the chocolate cake, or, how to be self-centered. Of course, so you don't have to blame yourself. However, we can reinforce these obscurations, mental and emotional obscurations. We can reinforce them in negative ways, and we can also reinforce them in positive ways. But that's another talk pertaining to the accumulation of merit and the reduction of obscurations. But anyway, my point is, even if you wanted to have a better ordinary mind in samsara, it would take a long time, 84,000 things to address. And it would take a lot of discipline to exhaust those mental and emotional afflictions. The main point is that is not awakened mind. It's not awakened mind. It's not awakening mind. It's not what we're talking about here. And it's very rarely genuine bodhicitta. Be rather random if it was. And it's not that this ordinary mind can't do good things for others and the world, but it's not the effulgence of bodhicitta that we're after here. So, okay, if it's not the coarse mind, where do we find this awakened mind? And kind of bear with me here. We're on an expedition to find the awakened mind, ultimate bodhicitta. And we're doing this before we launch out willy-nilly in the world with our good intentions to help, which is the relative bodhicitta. This is how Chekawa in the 12th century taught about bodhicitta in the 7-point mind training. He taught the ultimate. He gave a great exposition on the ultimate bodhicitta first, and then the relative bodhicitta. It's the way I learned and practiced it. 7-point mind training might have been the first retreat I ever took with Lama Allen in 1987. I went on to take it 2 more times, and once with Gyaltsen Rinpoche because I have a very dense mind. But also because this exposition of ultimate and then relative bodhicitta it just really is a great help to me. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, we have a couple books by Lama Allen. You could study that version, especially Buddhism with an attitude, that version of the 7-point mind training. It's essential for cultivating bodhicitta, but don't let me get off on a tangent here. So we're on an expedition. We want to find the awakened mind first, and then we'll take it out into action. So it's informed with wisdom. So if it's not the coarse mind, is it the subtle mind? This is a test. Pretty sure you probably all say no. But generally, if we meditate enough, if we're intuitive enough, if we're introspective enough, we can see through the coarse mind and we can ascertain the subtle mind, the subtle mental and emotional factors. We can do it through the developmental path of shamatha, or we can do it through the discovery path of shamatha, or we can do it through psychoanalysis. It can come down to these subtle factors. And they contain things like our implicit biases or our imputations, seeing something as one thing when it's possibly another or another or another. Get 10 people in a room, we're going to see 10 different things. And Tsoknyi Rinpoche, Wayne knows this is my favorite teaching from Tsoknyi's last retreat. He taught that all phenomena and the self are illusory, illusion. But what we make of it, what we think about it, is delusion. And so for weeks now, I've just been walking around and going, illusion, 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 illusion. Oh, delusion, delusion, delusion. And you try to shift that, into a wider perspective and a more inclusive perspective, at least. So this subtle mind, it includes imperceptible perceptions and sensations. It is sort of the root of the 5 aggregates, the 5 skandhas. It's happening all the time when we're barely aware of it. We experience something, we have an emotional reaction, we give it a name and a form, we develop a strategy, we want to do something with it, and then ultimately we start grasping or pushing away as a fully developed self with others out there. It's the 5 skandhas. Trungpa says it's the 5-stage development of the ego. You can see it goes from very subtle to very dense, and then an I and a you and a me, and half the time we don't even know we're doing it. So, okay, I'll give one more example. I probably give this in all my retreats, but it really thrills me that we're really looking at these implicit biases in racism and prejudices in our world in the last few years. In academia, it's really been in the last, 5 years. Because, we have these very subtle, imperceptible fears even, like you're walking down the street and you don't even know it, like, oh, I'm, in the back of your mind, I'm a little afraid of that person coming down the sidewalk towards me. And you just kind of unconsciously cross the street, and you don't even quite, it all happens so kind of quickly and intuitively, you don't even know. And so that's what we're trying to do with looking at implicit bias in the subtle mind, is just realize that we have a lot of these things that are driving us that are unconscious and hardly, we have to work to find our implicit biases. But yeah, through meditation and introspection, it's possible. But don't stop there. We're still looking for the awakened mind. It's not in the coarse mind. It's not in the subtle mind. Let's keep going. Go right on through, break on through to the other side, Lama Allen says, and come right on down to the alaya vijnana, the substrate consciousness of the alaya, or ground of your mind. Is this the ground of all? No. It's the ground of your very resty mind. It's where all of your seeds are stored, but it's not the seeds themselves. And but it is where your seeds can start manifesting. It's very subtle, but it's good to get there because you can get the bigger picture. You might even be able to see all your past lives. It's certainly filled with bliss, luminosity, non-conceptuality, space and time collapses. It's a great place to reach. And often shamatha meditators reach the alleviation and think they've arrived, they've gotten there all the way, and they haven't. And it's very difficult to talk them out of that bliss, luminosity, and non-conceptuality to keep on going to the other side. And so if you do, however, you break through even the ground of the ordinary coarse and subtle mind, or you can break all the way through the Rupakaya to the Dharmakaya, the ground luminosity and clarity of our whole being. And that's where the mind of awakening springs from. That luminous ground of our being, the Dharmakaya, the primordial ground, many terms for it. Don't get fixated on what term we give it. Just think the groundness of the ground. The ground of all is how we used to say in Christian tradition. And so that, there's many different ways to think about that, to experience that, to reach that. I'm going to come back to our Mahayana roots. Mahayana Buddhism terms this empty, luminous clarity. They call it our Buddha nature, right? And so I know many of you, know the term Buddha nature. It's kind of friendly. We like it. Buddha nature, okay, it gives you hope. I've got Buddha nature, within, and we do. It's uncompounded, it's luminous, it's clear. We are all born with it. It is your birthright. You don't have to create it or develop it. You don't have to search for it. You don't have to cut open the heart chakra and peel it apart to try to find the Buddha nature. It's just there, and it's always been there, hiding in pure sight, like the sun covered by the clouds of mental and emotional afflictions, or obscurations might be a better term. So it doesn't come about through any cause or circumstance. It's just there to be discovered. It's the essence of our mind. That is awakened mind. And while we just covered this whole developmental way, it can be cultivated or discovered, especially through meditation and shamatha. Cut through the coarse, cut through the subtle mind, cut through the alaya keep going, It also just breaks through, right? Thank goodness. Sometimes it breaks through because you've sustained a trauma, unfortunately. And the clouds just kind of part and suddenly you see the light or reality. It's like, oh, nothing really mattered anyway. My child almost died. And in the grand scheme of things, nothing else really mattered. You just kind of, you get that glimpse, of Buddha nature, awakened mind, ground of all. You get a glimpse. At other times, the glimpse just comes because we're so exhausted. We can't keep perseverating on something any longer. It's that moment where you flop down on the bed and you're just like, I can't do it anymore. And again, some kind of a release occurs. You release the struggle, you release your problems, and you get a glimpse, something breaking through, kind of like, ooh, that's it. I really don't need to hold on to all of this. I can just let it go, release the struggle, and something will break through. It's just a glimpse of that awakened mind. So thank goodness we get those glimpses. I'm sorry if it's come from difficulty, but that is one of the ways we tend to wake up quickest, right? Unfortunately. And so that's the brightly shining Buddha nature, and that is what bodhicitta is. It's all that bodhicitta is. It's the cause, it's the energy, and it's the result of bodhicitta. But we are human beings here in the relative and conventional world. So how do we experience and express bodhicitta, this bodhicitta that's our birthright? How do we express that? So now we're going into relative bodhicitta because bodhicitta expresses relatively through compassion. And compassion expresses as I was saying at the beginning, as first of all, aspiration to care for oneself and others, a real genuine commitment, ethics, just a real sense this is the right thing to do. I want to do this. I can do this. And then actually doing something about the state of suffering through action. But we have to keep in mind, apropos our previous half of the morning, that this action is not what Martin Luther King used to say in the Christian tradition. It's not works righteousness. Like I gathered this much merit today and I'm a little bit higher on the staircase to heaven, working my way to salvation. It's not that. There aren't really chunky, substantial things to do. Although in one way there is, I know, but that's not the point. There's not a syllabus or a curriculum for action. We're not trying to climb the ladder to awakening. There is no ladder. There is nowhere else to go. Bodhicitta isn't somewhere else. We're not going to get there someday. It's right here. It's right now. And that's why that emptiness aspect of bodhicitta is so important. Because it is action, but it's acting moment to moment upon what arises on your path. It's taking advantage of every opportunity to convert suffering into felicity on your path. So wouldn't that be great? So I know that you guys have a taste of this uncompounded, uncreated Buddha nature, this glimpse, a glimpse or a development. And I know that you've had the desire to let it sort of manifest or effulge into compassion that heals others. And so that's what I call the great blending, the blending of those two, the blending of compassion, which is aspirational action, with the wisdom of emptiness. Yes, it's compassionate. Yes, it's active. Yes, it's a felt sense. Yes, we can cultivate it. Yes, we want to cultivate it. Yes, we want Buddha nature. But it only works if we infuse it with this wisdom of emptiness. Because there really isn't anything else to do except wake up every single moment. And that brings on the Buddha nature. It's not working towards something. You might be a good person doing good things, but that's not this refreshing bodhicitta that we're trying to get a sense of. So it's not necessarily developmental, although there are things to do, because we do live in the conventional world and we do have arms and legs. And it's also not static. Like, oh, I accomplished it, and now I got my bodhicitta on. Got it. It's not static. It's dynamic. It's simultaneous. The arising of bodhicitta is simultaneous with the opportunity for it to arise anytime that you wake up right now. So just had to give that one more pitch for the blending, because now let's come even further back down to Earth, our conventional world. We do have arms and legs. I always think of my dog when he wants me to get a toy out from underneath the sofa or a treat from the refrigerator. And I'll be sitting here, I might even be meditating, and he'll come and he'll start, if I don't pay attention to him, he'll start nudging my arms, and my legs. And it's as if to say, look, dude, you've got arms and legs, do something. I can't do it with my paws. Get up and do this. And, and there's a truth to that. We can't just purely sit in the emptiness of our Buddha nature and watch the world go round in suffering. We've got arms and legs. We can do something. And that is a very definite aspect of the expression of bodhicitta. Don't want to minimize it. And so we're down in relative territory, relative bodhicitta. It has aspiration and action in it. We already covered aspiration, the pledge or wish to accomplish perfect enlightenment, and it encompasses the four boundless attitudes of loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity. They're sometimes called the boundless attitudes, or sometimes called the four immeasurables, sometimes called the Brahma Vihara. It just depends on which school and yana you're looking at it, but it's all the same. It's all the same cultivation of this aspiration of bodhicitta, and I'll give you an experience of it in just a minute. It also practices the equality of self and others, the exchange of self and others, cherishing others more than one cherishes oneself. These are all ways to stimulate the heart of bodhicitta. Stimulate your compassion. And then there's the action aspect of relative bodhicitta. And that is the pledge to practice the 6 paramitas and to actually practice them. Quote unquote, Jigme Lingpa. 6 paramitas are generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. In case you don't know where to start with your behavior, those are some good starting points. It's what the 6 water bowls, I don't know if they're up there or not, that's what they represent, are the 6 paramitas, to remind you of your ethics and your discipline. And the first 5 definitely are things to do, and the 6th one is that cultivation of wisdom and the wisdom of emptiness. It's transitions at that point into the wisdom of emptiness. And someday we'll have Konsho come speak and give a talk on the perfection of wisdom, which I know he's deeply steeped in at the moment. But here we have concentration. What am I talking? Where am I at? So basically, whether we're doing relative bodhicitta with relative aspirational bodhicitta, or relative action practice of the 6 paramitas, or the ultimate practice of ascertaining emptiness and illumination, doesn't really matter. One is not better than another. We have to be kind of fluent in all of them and apply whatever skillful means we can, given our capacity in any given day or hour or minute, and given the needs of the human beings in front of you or the sentient beings in front of you. So we really need to be fluent in a whole menu of ways to, through aspiration, stimulate our heart of compassion, and then through action, give to other beings. So let's just do, if you would like, a little guided meditation, guided experience on the aspirational bodhicitta. And it's focusing primarily on cultivating loving kindness for oneself and for others in a very well-articulated way. Jigme Lingpa says that bodhicitta begins by, quote, stimulating, indeed fabricating, a feeling of virtue of using, I'm sorry, I didn't say that right. Fabricating a feeling. Okay, stimulating, indeed fabricating a feeling by virtue of using referents that are easy to feel for first. I know that's a big mouthful, but I like it. Bodhicitta begins by stimulating, indeed fabricating, a feeling by virtue of using referents that are easy to feel for. So what does this mean? So let me guide you through it. It's beautiful. You can do it. You'll enjoy doing it. So first of all, start with someone that you already really, really love and have some genuine compassion for. I'm pretty sure all of us have at least one person like that, or maybe our dog. And so just bring to mind someone that you care deeply for. Someone who it's just automatic. That when you think about them, your heart opens and you wish the best for them. You really want them to be happy, to be free of pain, be free of suffering. Honestly, you just kind of smile when you think about this person. You really have nothing but joy and love and caring for them. So just take a moment and feel how it feels in your heart when you bring them to mind. That very, very feeling, very loving feeling. This is the first step. You've got to find a target in your own very heart that knows what it feels like to be open and loving and caring. And that's your starting line. And it becomes your template. You start there. And then from there, we move out and try to extend that feeling to ourselves. Can you feel just as much compassion and love and goodwill for yourself as you feel for your loved one? And again, you really want to feel it in your heart. This is a somatic experience. It's not a thought. We think our feelings, but we don't. We feel them in our bodies. So keep that target in your heart center and let it open towards yourself. It's not just a good idea, it's a real feeling. And then we kind of move out to generally a neutral person. So neutral that it's like the checkout clerk at Walmart. See if you can extend your heart of compassion out towards them, knowing that they too, just like your loved one and just like yourself, wish to be free from suffering and wish to be filled with happiness. And just wish them well. Nothing specific. You don't really even know them. Don't make up something for them. Just wish them well. May you be free from suffering. May you find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. Just because. They deserve it too. And then in this sequence, again, it's not my sequence. This is a age-old contemplative sequence of the boundless, cultivating the boundless attitudes. Next in the sequence is only if you have got that really good feeling in your heart, that stimulation, that stimulated heart of compassion, only if you have that, then you might bring to mind a difficult person. And just know, just bring them to mind. Don't get into the story. Don't get into the hurt. Don't lose that feeling in your heart. Just know that that difficult person, like yourself and like your loved one, also wishes to be free from suffering and filled with more opportunities for happiness. I can't think of anybody on earth who doesn't want that. And misguided though their behavior might be, we can think of some, well, we can think of some great examples, but I guarantee you that still that behavior was coming from a seed of wanting to escape suffering and find happiness. So for them too, just wish them well and that they find happiness and reduce their suffering. Maybe they'll be a little less difficult. And finally, if you still have that open feeling in your heart, you can extend loving kindness out to the whole world. But you know, the world is very deep and vast and filled with suffering right now. Continues to be the degenerate times. So it could be a little beyond reach in a genuine way, you know, the whole world. So just in whatever way you can, just say a prayer. Say a prayer for the world. Heartfelt prayer for the world. And again, come on back gently, keeping your heart open. Gravity on the chair, temperature in the room, light through your eyes, people around. And that's the loving kindness sequence of the 4 boundless attitudes. I just wanted to give you a taste of it. You could go on in any one session to do the same sequence with compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and really in any order that you like. And it's a heart practice, worthwhile doing. Heart health. I'm into that lately. There's another age-old contemplative method for stimulating aspirational bodhicitta, and it's called 7-point causal sequence. And there's a little bit of a problem with it right out of the gate for modern meditators, and you probably know what it is. It's seeing all beings as one's mother. And, you know, in general these days, we don't have the same fond, compassionate feeling about our mothers. It's not guaranteed. That the Tibetan cultures did, for instance, you know, in rural, loving, nurturing, pastoral times, you know. So it's a little problematic for modern meditators to say, think of all beings as one's mother. It's not the best ploy. So what I like to say is reflect on someone in your life who has recently shown kindness to you. So let's all do that. That's an easy thought experiment. We don't even have to meditate. Just reflect on someone in your life who's recently shown some kindness to you. Hopefully everybody's got one, maybe many, but pick one. And bring that person to mind, and bring to mind the way that it felt to have that kindness offered to you. And maybe as you think of that, you can locate a feeling of gratitude for that kindness that this person showed and the way it made you feel. And from that gratitude, just generate feelings of warmth, tenderness, tender compassion, not towards anybody this time. You don't have to give it away this time. It's okay to have someone show kindness to you and you can keep it for yourself. It's okay. And from that big dose of kindness, just cultivate the aspiration that possibly you too might gain enough compassion to offer for the sake of others, that you too could generate and express this kindness to others. Have confidence. Intentionally or unintentionally, sometimes we receive kindness just because somebody's kind. They aren't trying to do it. Maybe you could do it too. You can do it too. We have to have confidence. It's a little like reversing how much guilt and shame we carry around because, we tend to be really good at beating ourselves up for what we're not doing, how we did that wrong, how we hurt that person, how I don't want to hurt the next person. Oh my God, I better hide. You were going to retreat because you're scared of yourself. Just don't want to do any harm. I've been there. But in this case, you're trying to kind of reverse that and make the pledge, have the confidence that you will cultivate enlightenment for the sake of others. You will be a person that shares as much kindness as you receive. So that's just a really beautiful aspiration. It doesn't have to have anything else that goes with it. It's just allowing yourself to feel the gratitude of having kindness showered upon you and making that aspiration that you someday or immediately will share that kindness with others. Super easy. So those are the first two. Loving kindness was and then a compassion, two little contemplative interventions that we can employ to stimulate our bodhicitta. There's two more, and I'm not going to dwell on them because I think they can create a refreshing effulgence, or they can also feel like more discipline, like one more thing to do. I'm just going to mention them because you'll feel incomplete if I don't, if you know about them. And one is called the 4 white and the 4 dark factors. And no detail here, but the basic idea is that you're trying to cultivate positive behavior and the kind of positive behavior that liberates your afflictive patterns, which is, of course, valuable. You don't want to obliterate all of your great meditation every time you get off the cushion because your afflictive patterns are, knocking you around. So it's very good. It's part of the practice of accumulating merit through reducing emotional reactivity and increasing enlightened responses. So there's a practice to do that. There's a practice for that, an app for that. And then finally, there's the practice of Tonglen, and I'd be really surprised if anybody here had not heard of Tonglen. And it's the practice of giving and taking, and it's a really beautiful practice. But again, if you're not fully centered in your effulgence of Buddha nature, the kind that's radiating from the ground of your being, and you're not feeling that openness and that love and compassion from your heart, then Tonglen is potentially difficult. I'm going to give you the description of it and you'll understand why. It's beautiful, but there could also be a little bit like, what? I don't have that to give. Here's the description. Using the rhythm of the breath Upon exhaling, one imagines all of one's own happiness and good qualities given away to others. And then one imagines others are completely set free from their pain, and this pain, meaning their pain is taken into oneself in inhalation. And one prays without ceasing that all beings are free from pain and never lose their happiness until they attain enlightenment. Well, it's a very beautiful practice if you've got it in you, but if you don't, you come home from work at night and you've given it the office, and you know, you're not really going to feel like you want to give all your happiness, knowledge, and good qualities to someone else. You're not going to want to breathe in their pain. I mean, honestly, the only time I can do that in a nanosecond with my daughter is with my daughter, that kind of automatic mother love, cut my arm off for you. But I don't think I can do it with anybody else, honestly. But there's times like on retreats where you do feel that fullness. You are in touch with your Buddha nature. Go to a Lama Allen retreat. He will get you there. He's very good at that excavation. And you're feeling full of bodhicitta. And then Tonglen is just a really special practice that opens you up even further. Because it does go into that emptiness aspect where my pain and your pain are not really separate. I can't really genuinely be happy if you're in pain. So it brings in that equanimity. And this practice is really powerful for that. If you want to be guided through it, Lama Tsultrim has a 20-minute Tonglen meditation on YouTube that's really, really lovely, and it won't deplete you. It'll be enhancing. Just put Lama Tsultrim and put Tonglen, and it'll bring it up on one of her Lama lives. So I guess in sum about this aspiration, the stimulating the heart of compassion aspiration, is that we mean it in the most concrete terms. You really do feel it in your heart, like butterflies. Like I feel compelled to give because I feel like I have enough. So it's a real feeling, and from that feeling, then it really doesn't matter what you're trying to help or who you're trying to help. We want to see everything that arises on our path as an opportunity to practice bodhicitta. Jigme Lingpa calls it adventitious arisings. And even if it's difficult things that arise on our path, it's adventitious because we can practice applying some skillful means that liberate the situation and also bring you closer to liberation. Coming down the pike here, I guess I should just say a tiny bit more about action, bodhicitta. The 6 paramitas, and generosity, discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. And they do, these are things that you do, and they do take energy for certain. And so therefore, they could be draining like another have to, but if they're infused with this wisdom of emptiness, then every time you have an opportunity to be generous, every time you have an opportunity to apply discipline, every time you have an opportunity to be patient, if you blend it, remember blending is my term of the day, if you blend it with the spirit of emptiness, you're not only doing it for the situation at hand, but it's part of your own awakening. It's said that the giver, the one given to, and the giving practice are all empty. They're all just there for you. Kind of sounds a little self-centered, doesn't it? It's all for me. But what it means is it's all there for you to deepen your practice. Of course, there's benefit for others as well. And so it's the practice of kind of loosening the grip of grasping and controlling, and if we can practice this blending, it sort of takes a layer off every time you practice. Your coarse mind, your subtle mind unlayers, your laya vijnana gets a little thinner, glimpses of ultimate Buddha nature come through, even in your active life. It's the thinning of the self. Donald Rothberg used to teach a retreat he called thinning of the self. I like it, de-densifying. That's what you're doing. And so one last pitch for this blending. It's the infusion of ultimate bodhicitta nature that fuels the further aspiration and action of bodhicitta on the relative path. They fuel each other. They're inseparable. It's the great blending. And so if you put when you put the wisdom and compassion together, the emptiness and compassion together, it guards against just going way off into the emptiness of everything, kind of like, oh, well, it's all empty, samsara as usual. Why do anything? I'll just sit and space out. You know, that kind of apathy and nihilism, you know. But so that's one reason when you're, you know, so why you wouldn't want to just fall to the empty side of it. But meanwhile, you can't go to the other extreme and practice so much compassionate action that it's just that works righteousness working for your salvation. That's more like self-centered gratification. It's a little bit like in psychotherapist training. One thing they instill at the very beginning is, you know, why are you helping? Why do you want to help? You know, it can't be infused with your own agenda, your own self-centered gratification. It has to come from a place of impartiality and a real desire to help for the sake of helping. Can't be because you getting better and looking, you know, being healthier makes me feel good about myself. So that's why the two have to go together. And I'm going to end with a quote from Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche, and then leave you with one last short practice in loving kindness that you can do anywhere, anytime. But just to conclude, Dzongzar Khyentse says, understanding emptiness is the real bodhicitta. However, bodhicitta should always have wisdom of emptiness and method of compassion together. If the wisdom of emptiness is missing, then bodhicitta is a good wish and it has compassionate action, but it's still dualistic, and this will not uproot samsara. However, if the method of compassion is missing, then it won't help oneself or others. So you have to have both. Without the wisdom of emptiness, our practice can degenerate into pity or sentimentality. Quote from Lama Allen. But without compassion, our practice can lead to nihilism and a lack of desire to engage other sentient beings for their benefit. So you have to have the two together. And that's the great blending. And that's my contribution to bodhicitta. So let's just end with a really simple way to do loving kindness and compassion meditation anywhere, on the spot, in just a few minutes. Super easy. It's the one I do all the time. I might not do the 4 measurables every day or even every month, but I do this one all the time. And it goes like this, and then I'll guide you through it. We're going to go through the 4 people again, you know, loved one, self, difficult person, and world. But this time it's easier. It's not easier, but it's paired with the breath. And on the in-breath, it's, may I be free from suffering and the causes of conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may I find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. And you really, really imagine it. You know, imagine well, as Lama Allen says, imagine well, really see it. What would give you the causes and conditions of happiness? What do you need to have alleviated to reduce the causes and conditions of suffering? So we'll just go through these 3 times each for each person. And just quick and easy, but do use the power of your imagination. So first of all, let's take that person that we love, the one that's easiest to stimulate, if not fabricate, the feeling of love and compassion. Bring that person to mind. And on the in-breath, may you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may you find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness and really see it to be so. And again, same person, or maybe a different person that you just love to death. On the in-breath, may you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may you find happiness and the causes and conditions of happiness. And one last time for the same person or a different person. The in-breath, may you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may you find happiness and the causes and conditions of happiness. Imagine it so for that person. They're flourishing. They have all that they need for their welfare. And then, if it's true for them, then it must certainly be true for you. Bring yourself to mind with all your present day difficulties, joys, and sorrows. Again, on that in-breath, may I be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. May I find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. And imagine well all the things you need. Good teachers, authentic teachings, food, shelter, clothing taken care of, meaningful friends, meaningful activity, all that you need. And again, on the in-breath, may I be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may I find happiness and the causes and conditions of happiness. And one last time. On the in-breath, may I be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may I find happiness and the causes and conditions of happiness. And now for that neutral person. So many neutral persons around the world. It's kind of fun just to bring our attention to these neutral people we hardly ever notice. But they're human beings who, just like us, want to be free from suffering. Just bring a neutral person to mind. On the in-breath, may you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may you find happiness in the causes and conditions for happiness. And again, for the same neutral person or a different neutral person, the in-breath, may you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And the out-breath, may you find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. And for these neutral people who we don't really know exactly what they need or want, One of my teachers says, just send them the nectar that's filled with what they want. You don't need to create an agenda for them. Again, watch your helping mind. Just send them the nectar of all that contains all that they need and want for their happiness. So one more time for the neutral person. May you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. May you find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. And now, if and only if you feel like you got it in you, you've got an open heart, you can take a difficult person and you can scale it. Sometimes your difficult person could just be a 1 on a difficult scale of 1 to 10 if you don't have a lot of effulgence in you. And sometimes it can be that heavy hitter. It can be that 10, that person, that really difficult person, one that really gets you reactive. But the point here at this point in the meditation is not to get reactive. So don't pick a difficult person that's really going to get you gored. Because you want to stay calm. And again, with this difficult person, you just might want to send nectar. I don't know that you want to meditate too deeply on their suffering and what they might need to be happy. I don't know. Could take you down rabbit holes you don't want to go. So nectar is fine. And keep calling that person to mind, whether they're a 1, a 5, or a 10 on your scale. On the in-breath, may you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may you find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. Imagine it so. It's kind of rewarding to imagine a difficult person being happy. It kind of shapeshifts them. Sort of cool. And again, with the same difficult person or a different difficult person, may you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And may you find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. Imagine it so. And one last time for the same difficult person or a different difficult person. May you be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And may you find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. Knowing that they too want the same things you want. And finally, if your heart is still open and feels like this is the right thing, then we can bring the world to mind. And again, you don't have to imagine every single malady around the globe. If you want, you can just breathe out white light that surrounds our globe, our earth. You can breathe out white light into troubled places on earth that are of particular concern to you. And you can, at the very least, just say a prayer for our earth, our globe, our universe, all the universes. So on the in-breath, may we be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. And on the out-breath, may we find happiness and peace and all of the causes and conditions of happiness and peace. And again, for the world, may we be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. May we find happiness in the causes and conditions of happiness. Imagine it so. Sometimes we don't even know how to imagine it so. So many problems. What would it look like if we had peace and happiness around the globe? And one last time, bringing the world to mind. May we be free from suffering and the causes and conditions of suffering. May we find peace and happiness and the causes and conditions of peace and happiness. And imagine well. And this time, really be sure you come back from the universe to the feeling of the gravity in your body, holding yourself to earth, your arms and legs, which can move in action, bodhicitta, temperature in the room, light for your eyes, people around you. All here for our bit of flourishing. Well, let's dedicate this time together for the benefit of others and to the benefit and flourishing for ourselves. Okay, thank you.
So I often think of the word mind as distinct from the brain. The brain is part of the mind. So how do you? I think
Okay, there you go.
but
Mhm.
it's something that's always with me. So
Mhm.
I just consider the mind, the Buddha mind, which includes everything.
Yeah,
Would that be acceptable as a way to think of mind?
yeah. Well, yeah, that's the ultimate perception of mind. When we drill down to mind versus brain, we've got an expert here in the crowd, Anita. But that is what we are investigating at the Center for Contemplative Research, is the brain correlates to the mind. But we would never say that the mind is the brain. Lama Allen would just go into convulsions if we said that. But there are brain correlates, just like there's a heart correlate to bodhicitta. There's a whole exposition of the heart chakra and the energy of bodhicitta and the drops and the winds. And there's a whole inner, energetic explanation of bodhicitta that we didn't even touch upon today. I'm not qualified. I'm not that brilliant at that kind of thing. But there's correlates to that energy. There's correlates to consciousness. Now, of course, nobody's ever defined consciousness definitively. Still working on that one. But there's brain correlates, and that's what we measure with the EEGs. And we're trying to phenomenologically put all that together with stages and paths of meditation in at least one study here at the CCR. Like, can we tell if people are advancing along the path of shamatha? Can we tell by their brain correlates or by their self-reflection, their subjective reports? That's one study we're doing. But you are correct. The overall container for all of that is Buddha nature or primordial ground or Dharmakaya or whatever you can come up with. One of my friends calls it the 0 point. That just sounds kind of void to me, but still, it's however you can conceptualize, the ground of all. That's the primordial mind.
Take the mind out. I think of it as the heart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The heart being transcending
Mm-hmm.
cranial object.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank goodness, right? Yeah, you'd be right in line with Buddha Dharma, and they place mind in the heart. And I think this whole talk on ultimate bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta references it as coming from the heart. in both a gross, concrete, feelable, somatic way, but also in an energetic, intangible, you know, energetic ways, the dynamism of it.